Oh man, the sun is going down. It was minus 15 this morning. Minus 15. Had a fairly early start. I went to where my suspected buck was probably going to go through. Caught him on the camera again. Chase was on, and then he led me into deep timber. Everything's frosty and crunchy, and then he started doing laps, chasing does around in circles, and that was all she wrote for tracking tracks. It got very confusing real quick, but so while I was in there, I went for a big hike, and I learned a lot more about where he goes and why. I knew there's a deer party going on somewhere, I just couldn't find it, and then I found it, so. I'm getting closer. Getting close. Seems like I've been doing this forever, but it's fun. But I gotta get home. But I got a real tough time quitting. I don't really have quit in me when I want to do something. It's frustrating to have that too at times, right? But anyway, I got a lot of emails on my phone. Handful fresh out of the pan, handful that I don't think they've been read before. And what else? You know, it's funny. Quick little blurb. I got a comment forwarded to me a few days ago or something. A little while ago. I keep forgetting to mention it. Somebody on here blew a gasket. And it's funny, you know, I think I try to be positive. You know, when I was first introduced to the internet, I became aware very quickly about how it was just used to prevent. People were just going on there. You know, so many people would start their post by saying, you know what makes me angry? You know what pisses me off? You know what made me angry today? And rarely would people go on there and say, you know what made me really happy today? You know what made me feel great today? Not many. Isn't that funny? It's kind of weird. I guess it's just human nature, isn't it? I guess so, right? It's like another thing I remember taking note of years ago. It seemed like the smaller the community, the more apt people were to bitch. It's kind of weird. Northern Rockies, where I used to guide for a long time, the majority of the people in the community, if you know, you give them, give them 5 topics. We're going to talk about one of these 5 topics. 4 are good and one's bad. Everybody's going to pick the bad one to bitch about. The same as where I used to live in those beautiful farm country in the coastal mountains. And there's so many angry people. I didn't understand, because they lived in paradise. Their bills are paid. They're living a great life. But anyways, I'm going on a bit of a ramble. What I'm saying is, I don't normally start off or say negatives, but I got to mention this one. One of my pet peeves in life is people that don't do things for themselves. People that sit on their ass and expect people to do things for them. It can drive me bonkers. I shouldn't say it doesn't drive me bonkers, but it can frustrate me when I see it. It's like, get off your fat ass and make shit happen, you know? And somebody, I guess, went on a big tangent on the channel and blew a gasket, said, I can't stand this channel anymore, and all the people here talking to each other in the comments section saying good morning, and this is a quote, I'm sitting on my ass waiting for you to deliver proof. Sitting on my ass waiting. Key words. Sitting on my ass waiting. That's a pet peeve of mine. It's very frustrating for me to watch people when they sit on their ass waiting. Guess what happens for people when they sit on their ass waiting? Their ass gets fatter. That's about it, right? That's about it. You know, the world is a beautiful place. Oh, there goes the sun. Holy cow, that's fast. But the world is a beautiful place, and everything's out there for you to go get. You only get one chance to do it. What we're doing here is we're sharing everybody's truth. The power is in the testimony, and then it's up to your brain, what's between your ears, to figure it out on your own without being told. You know? I'm sitting on my ass waiting here for proof, damn it! Okay, Karen, take it easy. Now, where are we? I don't even know where to start. Hold on a minute. We'll start with this one. Georgia Bigfoot sighting in 1995. How's it going, Steve? It's going great, thank you. My name is Jason Grasso, and I'm 36 years old, and I live in North County, San Diego. I've had a lifelong passion for hunting and the outdoors ever since the first hunting trip my uncle took me on in North Carolina when I was 10 years old. Before I get into my story, I want to send my sincere... Oh, this is an older one. About my horse. Appreciate it. I know firsthand how hard it is to go through losing your best friend, animal or human. Okay. Having said that, I'll get into my encounter/sightings that I've had with these things that all took place in North Carolina and Georgia. I apologize in advance if it seems like I'm rambling on, but I feel the best way for everyone to truly understand and experience what I went through is to lay out all the details so they can feel like they were right there with me. Growing up, my family and I would always travel about an hour north of Atlanta to my grandma's horse ranch that was located in Marietta, Georgia, for our yearly 2-week Christmas vacation. And on the trip that I was 10 years old was when my parents felt that I was old enough to go hunting with my Uncle Andy in North Carolina for dove on a huge piece of private property his friend's family owned. I do not want to give out any specifics of where the property is located out of respect for my uncle's friend who owns it, and also so none of those fake research groups and so-called intimidators show up and make a circus of it. I can tell you that it's in the southeastern part of North Carolina. And once you get off the interstate, you drive for a good while into the middle of nowhere until you hit a private dirt road with a locked gate. There isn't a spot of land on that side of the states that isn't taken over by thick green forest that go on forever unless it's someone's property who has purposely cleared out the forest. The house is in the middle of the property and has about 200 yards of cleared pasture in front of and on both sides of the house. And the backside has about 40 yards cleared before the wilderness starts again and has a duck pond back there. So it's easy to imagine that anything could be out there, which I learned on the second day we were there. After we unpacked on the first day, we still had a few hours of daylight left, so my uncle gave me my first hunting and shooting lessons, going over all the do's and don'ts of handling a firearm while hunting and letting me get accustomed to handling and shooting a 12-gauge semi-auto Beretta. After our semi-successful dove hunt, the next morning I asked my uncle if I could take the Beretta out with me while I explore around the duck pond behind the house, which he agreed to, but only after he tested me on what I learned the day before about safety and all that. An hour into my exploration, I wandered a good half a mile away from the house, shooting at every squirrel, rabbit, and object that looked like it needed to be killed, just like most 10-year-old boys would. And I found an almost completely dry creek bed that I could walk in because it went back towards the direction of the house. I remember the forest being alive all day long, hearing all the birds, the bugs, and squirrels making their sounds, which I became accustomed to. Then I heard a squirrel close by making a loud and repetitive sound that to me was kind of like a car alarm, which was the first thing I thought was odd because none of the squirrels that I had shot at or killed from earlier that day had made this sound. Then I took aim at it while it was running up a tree and realized that every couple of branches it would stop and look towards my direction, but not down at me. It was looking behind me down the creek from where I had just come from. And as soon as it reached the upper canopy, it disappeared in the thick green foliage, and then everything went completely silent, as if Mother Nature hit the mute button. I could only hear the low sound of the water in the creek I was in, and it was at that moment that a feeling of dread and panic came over me, and my hands and legs started to twitch uncontrollably. At the same time, it was like I knew I was being watched, just like when you catch someone staring at you, but this was accompanied by what I can only explain as something like an inner voice in my head telling me to leave because I am trespassing and something really bad is about to happen. That's creepy. Even though I was only 10 years old and scared shitless by what, at that point, I thought could only be some sort of animal like a cougar or bear, I remembered learning to never turn your back and run from a predator. I knew I needed to turn and face it and slowly back away with my gun at the ready and keep my eyes on it until I was safe. So I turned around, and at that spot where I entered the creek, there was an old tree that had fallen down across the creek bed, and there was a bunch of debris that had built up along the tree. But there was a gap between two branches about 4 feet off the ground, and I could see up the creek through the branches, except for the middle, which had something blocking it, and it moved. And I could see some daylight right below the top branch, which I realized was the head of something dark, moving like it was crouching down to get below the bottom branch. So, no punctuation missing, sorry you guys. Which I realized was the head of something dark, moving like it was crouching down to get below the bottom branch. And as soon as I turned to see this thing move, it froze. And I was to focus and get a good look. I could see a dark, hairless face with a wide nose, big black eyes with a brownish/reddish hair around the face. Hope this wind isn't licking the microphone. I could also see that this thing had wrinkles on the outside of its eyes because it was squinting. And its nostrils were so big, I could see them moving as if it was smelling the air. The best way to give you a resemblance of something to compare to is the documentary called Finding Bigfoot. At the very end of the documentary, this dude's on his stomach facing uphill and captured a creature that's looking through a tree stump. And when I saw that footage, my heart dropped, and I started to feel the same way I did that day. Same dark face, nose, eyes, ears. Is traumatizing just writing this. Back to my encounter. I thought that day that I was looking at the face of a gorilla. So then I started backing sideways so I could easily move my head to see what's in front of me and back to keep an eye on the thing. After about 20 yards of moving back like that, I knew if I got out of the creek bottom, I could get back to the house quicker because the creek bottom had rocks all over, of all sizes, everywhere along with mud and all sorts of other things that had fallen in there. This whole time I was still looking through the gap because my head was on a swivel. This whole time it was still looking through the gap because my head was on a swivel. And I think it had been watching me for some time and knew what a gun was. But in order to get out of the creek, I needed both hands, so I tossed a shotgun up the bank, looked back to make sure it was still there, and then turned and climbed up the bank and got to the top in a few seconds. I grabbed the shotgun and got to my feet and looked back down the creek, and now the gap between the branches was open, and I turned and ran as fast as I could until I heard what sounded like a hellish scream/yell that shocked me inside and out and reverberated through my chest like I was riding in a car with a $10,000 sound system behind my seat. I never saw or heard anything again on that trip. That day for me opened my eyes at a young age that there is so much about this earth and beyond that we don't know yet. I know what I saw, and I feel that if I wanted to, I would not be here to tell my story. I've never told my uncle about what happened, and he thinks I was in the state I was in when I got back because I was up to no good out in the woods. There are only a few people who have heard my story, but now it's for everyone. I've had some other experiences on the same piece of land, and one in Georgia that I'll email soon. And I apologize for the lengthy story and any grammatical errors, but I've never told this story with the written word. Keep up the fight, Steve. You made it possible for those who have had been scared and afraid to tell their story in a safe place with people who have been through it too. With numbers and having each other's backs, we become stronger with each day, and the truth will no longer be hidden and manipulated by those assholes. Thank you. And you're welcome. Thanks for sending that in. That's an older one. Kind of rang a little familiar, but hold on a minute. Where am I getting mixed up here? Where is my brand new list? Hold on a second. Another person affected, lifelong effects, right? from not having any knowledge. Next email is titled My Encounters, fresh out of the pen. Hi Steve, been listening to you for a couple of years now, and I always wanted to mail you my story. Not sure why it took me this long, but here it goes. Excuse me, I live in Portland, Oregon, and have my whole life. About 45 minutes east is a place called Larch Mountain. Since I was a teenager to now, I've been up there well over 100 times. But about 20 years ago, me and a buddy drove up there as teens and didn't know the distance to the top, so we stopped about 3/4 of the way up and flipped a 180 and sat in the road with the car and the lights off. We're smoking cigarettes, and that ember was about the only light we had while we just sat bullshitting for a bit, and then we both heard it. About 100 feet behind the car. A lowered Acura Integra about 2 inches off the ground. I heard what can best be described as a wet, gurgling mop hitting the ground, but as a footstep. Definitely bipedal, and we could feel the vibration in the car like the movie Jurassic Park, LOL. It got louder and closer to about 50 feet or so, and we both looked at each other as my buddy struggled to get a hold of his car keys. He finally got the car started, and we peeled out of there. Never did see it, but we both had that gut feeling to get the hell out of there. Also, come to think about it as well, was that very odd quietness in the area beforehand I hear so many talk about. Had one other encounter at about 10 years old after hearing bushes rustling. It says resting? Oh, after hearing bushes resting while camping at the South Jetty in Tillamook Bay. Big 4-foot fire going, and the opposite side, out from the thick bushes, I seen and hear something come out that was huge. The eyes glowed off the firelight at least a good 7 feet tall or more, but just far back enough and dark enough I couldn't really see the body outline. Me being a kid at the time, I was freaked out. I jumped in the tent behind me, grabbed my uncle's .22 Ruger pistol, and came back out of the tent. And without any noise or anything whatsoever, it was gone. About 10 minutes later, my uncle came back from getting firewood, and I grilled him thinking he was messing with me, but he swore he was not. And could tell I was shaken up, but I believe he was telling the truth. He was also a short man, LOL. Whatever. So I doubted the... Oh, I get it. You mentioned his height compared to what you saw. So I doubted the eye flare being from him. Anyways, I love your channel. I listen almost daily, and I'm glad to know I'm not alone. Thanks for all you do, Steve, and keep letting the truth of the people out. And I will, man. Appreciate your email. I'm kind of frozen here. I'm probably screwing up reading again. Brr. There's a lake right there, and that wind coming off that lake is chill-y. I had to get changed out of my damp clothes, otherwise I'd be frozen frickin' stiff here right now if I didn't. It's funny, remember earlier when I took on this challenge, how many people accused me of making up all the stories or having somebody write all the stories for me? When do you think I decided to put the typos in? Right? When do you think I decided to put the typos in? Brr. Brr, brr. 1982 encounter. Hi, Steve. My name is Larry Rushing. I live in Alpine, California, 30 miles east of San Diego. In 1982, my then wife and I went camping at a small reservoir. I was an avid bass fisherman, and upon reaching our campsite, we set up camp. I noticed while staking the tent, the sumac tree behind my tent was torn apart. We also met our neighbors camped next to us, and they said, "You wouldn't believe what happened here last night. 2 college girls were screaming and yelling and threw all their gear in the car and left before he could get down there." Then I told them, you wouldn't believe what we just witnessed. Sorry, then I told them you wouldn't believe what we just witnessed. And as we stood looking at the view over the lake, we heard a dog barking madly. It caught our attention, and we looked to the north and we saw a creature running down the trail from the campground. I thought it was a man on a motocross bike, but then I realized there's no motor sound. Later that day, we hiked down to the lake with the people we met to the lake edge, to find tracks. And on the way down, we found a hole in the bank on the trail, scattered with trash inside. We found a hole in the bank on the trail, scattered with trash inside. Upon reaching the water's edge, we found a tree. We called it the cubby hole, for we could all sit underneath it. While looking across the lake, 5 of these creatures stood up from behind the reeds. Holy shit. We all just sat there. The creatures were staring at us, and then they just left. One moment they were there, then gone. They were grayish in color. Later that night as we sat there, the dark ones came to the edge of the lake and drank. They drank the water. They cupped it in their hands just like you and I would. We couldn't believe what we were seeing. We were terrified. There were a group of them. Later as we sat there, we could hear them breathing. It was dark now, and Brian stood up, walking right up to the reeds, and I went with him. We stood there facing the reeds, and Brian said, "We're not here to harm you." And I said the same. The reeds were parted, and this creature yelled in my face. We both fell to our knees. I bowed my head straight down. We went back to the girls. They were crying, and I didn't think we would get out of this alive. We sat back down, and I noticed to my right, one was standing on the trail, and it looked like a tree. I wanted to prove this is happening to myself. I ran towards it and flew the last 6 feet, arm outstretched to grab something, anything. It ran straight into the reeds at incredible speed. I hiked to the end of the lake alone, and in the canyon I saw lights of different colors. Now it's 5 a.m. It was becoming sunrise, and we hiked back to our campsite. Upon leaving, I went to the ranger office, and I asked if anyone reported any strange things at this campground. And she never looked at me, shook her head, no, and I left. 2 weeks later, my brother-in-law and I hiked into this area from the opposite side. We nearly reached the peak, and when we stopped, I told him I was having a feeling of get out here, you're not welcome. Months later, I hiked to the bigger reservoir and found human-looking footprints around a mud puddle. I have much more to say about this. Not a day goes by I don't think of my encounter, and have not camped since, though I would love to. Thanks, I love your show and appreciate the opportunity to tell the encounter. Sincerely, Larry Rushing. Okay, we gotta mark this as look into. Larry, you gotta come on here and tell us about this in person. All right? You gotta. We need to hear that one straight from the mouth. There's a lot there to share, don't you think? Holy shit. That's crazy. Excuse me. Uh-oh, urgent prayer needed. Okay, here we go. Came to the right place. Urgent prayer for a man missing in wilderness. No shit. Hi, Steve. I know you pass these on, so please mention this. Charles Hosch, Hosch, 67 years old, has been missing in the mountains of northern Georgia since Tuesday, November 11th, 2025. He was hiking in trails he is very familiar with. So far, no trace has been found. Please pray for his return. Thanks for all you do, Steve. Blessings on you and your family. Bob Sorensen. Shared, Bob. And prayers are flooding in right now, guaranteed. Thousands, probably tens of thousands of prayers are coming for the unfortunate man lost in the woods. That sucks. Hope he's all right. That's a handful of days now, isn't it? Handful of days. What do I got here? Have I read this? It's not marked as red. Going in. I'm getting cold. 1 visual, 3 experiences. Greetings, Steve. Ron here. I've been listening now for a few months. I tried messaging you once before, but I couldn't get it to go through. Starting with my background, I too am a guy that tries to be outside whenever possible. I'm a retired aircraft mechanic working mostly in the upstate New York area, 45 minutes from the Adirondack Mountains. How was that? And a couple of years in Kotzebue, Alaska. Never been into hunting. Fishing, yes. Dirt bike riding since 11. And I've had a 6th sense I'll call Spidey sense. All my family and call it paranoid. All my family call it paranoid or chicken shit. I'll first off let you know that I have had a few TBIs and a stroke. Strokes. An adult? I don't know what that meant, in brackets. I'm not nuts, but my timelines could be off a year or so. The memories are crystal clear. First, in the fall of '82, I was in the 10th grade. I finished dinner with my family. I left to go see a friend at his father's car repair shop. It was 5-ish p.m. The ride was approximately 1.5 miles, 1/3 back road, 2/3 woods, and passing an open landfill, a dump. After leaving the roadway, I went up into a wooded area overlooking Oriskany Creek. Oriskany Creek. I stopped on the top of a ridge to have a cigarette and check out the great view. I stopped, got off, lit a smoke, and I walked this ridge 25 feet or so each way from my bike, just looking at the sunlight and the trees and the creek below, guesstimating 150 to 200 feet down. I got the buggy feeling like I wasn't alone. Stepped on the cigarette, walked to my bike, started looking straight down from the bike, and I saw it, but it didn't register what I was looking at. We stared at each other for probably 45 seconds. He was standing on a lower, less used trail approximately 50 to 75 feet away. Once my brain caught up, I booted my bike to life and raced to the shop. I have never been back there by myself ever again. A couple years later, same friend, he and I went out at night. We decided to bust open a new bike trail using my '67 Chevy pickup. We plowed into a sapling grove about 30 feet. We did this a few times, laying them down. The last run in, the exhaust pipe tore off. Go figure. Sorry. We backed to a small road/trail, shut it off, left the lights on, and began to see if we could fix it. With the hood open, we sat there looking at the engine with Bic lighters. And that's when we heard massive footsteps coming down a side hill. We hopped in the truck. Noticing the hood was still open, I said, "I'm driving, you close it." Never seen a thing. Approximately 1/10 of a mile from my sighting. Third experience. Same friend. We were woods cruising in a, bracket I believe, a 71 El Camino on a highly lifted Blazer 4x4. You rednecks. I'm 5'6" tall, and I had to climb into this by grabbing an internal roll cage. Driving on a small road/trail, something rammed/hit the right rear quarter panel, somewhere in the 4 to 4.5 foot area. It rocked the truck so violently, we both thought we were going to tip over or crash. Oh, and this is the exact same area as the second time. My friend just laughs about it until I press the fact on how he was scared shitless those 2 times. I won't use his name, he never used to drink, but now it's every day. I'm not saying this caused it, but denial is easier when you're soggy. I'm Ron Chamberlain. Ron, appreciate that, man. You left out the description of what you saw. I'm sure we could probably guess, right? Yeah, it's too bad how many people choose to stay soggy, drunk, high. It's too bad. It's so common. Jacked up El Camino on a 4x4 frame. That's pretty funny. There's always somebody in every neighborhood who's got those kooky creations. Huh? El Camino's. I've seen one where I used to live. Somebody had a 57 Chev jacked up with like 40-inch tires underneath it. 57 Chev. Well, I guess I should probably get motoring, huh? I gotta get some food. Get some food in me. You're gonna game plan and see if I can't pull this off. It's such a hard thing to do. I know a lot of people will probably be like, what are you, some kind of a trophy hunter? You just want his head on the wall? You know, if you're not into hunting or the outdoors or into challenges, you probably won't get it. Myself, I like to be good at what I like to do. I like to be the best I can be with what I do in life. And hunting is one of the first thing I found that I could do, and I didn't need somebody to depend on to do it. Do you know what I mean? Like when I was a kid, I wanted to be a pro skier. I got up at 4 o'clock in the morning, started running at ski magazines, and then it quickly faded away because I didn't have any family interested in supporting me and backing me and getting involved. So sports were out of the question. I was good at sports and I was really good at skiing, but came from that family that was broken and a mess. But then hunting came into my life. Now that I got good at. And I like being good at it. I love hunting, but I love having the game meat in the freezer. First and foremost, game meat in the freezer. Okay, guys? That's what we eat. That's what we eat. But as you become a seasoned outdoors person, you know, you want to, I don't know how to describe it. I don't want to go out and dust the first deer I see. I want all the game. I want the herd to remain healthy. I want the young ones to grow up and be healthy and live their life and do what they do. I'm lost for words right now. My face is frozen off. But I like to, when I can, it's a one-on-one thing too. It's just deer hunting for me is like a solo thing. It's not a bunch of guys in camp thing for me. It's like I like to go out there by myself, jump into those mountains and forests, look for the sign, look at all the things that I've learned and taught myself to look for and recognize, and figure out where I just might find one of those big, old, past their prime, smart as you would not believe bucks or bulls, and single him out and stay on him and play his game, play my game. At the same time, it's just exciting, it's challenging for me, and I'm hunting an animal that's definitely past their prime 90% of the time, which is a good thing for me. I just like to do that. And if I can't pull it off, I'll give myself a time limit. I'll be like, I usually go like 3/4 of my hunt I dedicate to trying to pull off something outrageous, something really hard. And if I can't, then and I need the meat, which we need the meat. Right now we need the meat. Like Sarah's gonna be pissed if I go home with nothing. And I'll go get the best mature animal I can find in the last quarter, which I'm not there yet, I don't think. But anyway, I'm babbling, you guys. I guess I'm just trying to explain what I do and why I do it and why I love it so much. Some of the choices, the goals that I choose for myself out here hunting are a little outrageous, but I usually pull it off. And I can't describe the feeling when you pull it off because it is so hard to do, right? It's a very hard thing to do. I love it. It's what I do. I love it. But anyway, that's a bit of a babble, wasn't it? Somebody emailed me the link for the camera link isn't working in the description below or something. All you got to do is go to howtohunt.com. There's a page for the cameras if you want one of those trail cameras, and the discount code's there. Just go to howtohunt.com and the page is listed on there. Sarah's got a sale going. I shared that, right? Sarah's got a sale on her store going. And if you have something you want to share, you want the people to hear, some knowledge, something important, share my story at howtohunt.com. Word for word. And some of them even butchered. Anyway, what else was I going to say? I think that's about it. I do a lot of thinking, obviously, all day long as I'm by myself, not talking to anybody. Lots of thinking. I was thinking, I was listening to emails are done in case I piss you off, okay? So anyway, quick mention though, you know, I listen to a lot of independent journalists, independent channels, truth seekers, truth sharers. I find sometimes I get a little frustrated with that. I'm just going to point something out to you guys, see what you think. Because I know there's a bunch of you here that also do the same thing. You look into things for yourself and you look at all the different avenues you can to get that knowledge. And I noticed, you know, there's a lot of crazy ass bad shit going on here in Canada, the US, all around the globe. And there's a lot of people, popular people online with big popular channels, millions of followers. And it's usually they're usually all talking about the same theme stories. But you know what I noticed? Is nobody talks about how to make things right. Unless I'm missing something. Do you guys know of somebody who's nonstop daily pointing out on their popular channel with millions of subscribers how to make things right? I mean, I get it. It doesn't take, you don't have to tell me too many times for me to pick something up. When it comes to people doing bad things or bad shit going down, I got it. I picked it up. I've got it. Now what? What are you guys going to talk? Like the main group of people, we need people to start talking about a recipe to make things way better and make that go mainstream and get that talked about a lot. Don't you think? We need people to point out how to make things better. It's like I'm overflowing with facts about people being corrupt, what they're doing, what they've done, what they continue to do. I get it. How are we going to make it better? You know what I mean? How are we going to make it better? Somebody start talking about and making it mainstream popular to talk about, point out how to make things better. Am I making sense? Keep in mind, I've been talking to myself for quite a few days now. Let me show you. I'm down out of the wind here somewhat. I'm going to show you guys what I'm looking at here. Look at this sucker. It's going to be, I don't know what it's going to be tomorrow. Minus 18 tomorrow, I think. Is it focused? Probably not. Hold on a minute. There we go. You imagine being in that water? Imagine how cold that is? Yowza. Frozen. Why is it going out of focus? Oh, it's on auto, isn't it? Those are the Rocky Mountains right there in the background. Very cold. Very cold. I'm imagining most of the grizzly bears should be asleep by now. I'm guessing. I haven't seen any yet. Usually I bump into one or find some tracks, but I haven't seen a grizzly yet. They're around here, especially up on that hill right there. Anyway, that's it. I'm out of here, you guys. Hopefully be back tomorrow, and hopefully my great big old buck that I've been after a couple years. Talk to you later.